believe Buffalo is going to win it, folks.
Kick your heels up and down.
Let's see why the Buffalo Bills are en route to the playoffs.
Come on now, the Bills are making it happen now. Stand up now, come on and shout.
Buffalo Bills go undefeated. And we're going to the Super Bowl, yeah.
Now, baby. Come on.
No one
Come on
circles the
and
wagon
shout.
like the Buffalo Bills.
All right, we are live and we are back. Welcome to another episode of the Overdue Bills podcast, and we're excited today. Definitely 8th week in a row. We have a guest on today to talk about this game. And before we really dive into the game, let me introduce, the guys here. You see it, our guy, yours truly, Matt, a.k.a. Matty Ice, a.k.a. All Black Matt. Matt, how you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Ready to talk some Bills Dolphins action.
Absolutely. Definitely ready to do that. And I know we're excited, because last year, for our Rams, guests, we had, a pretty fun guest, a pretty, a curveball for the people. But this week for our Miami Dolphins, we have. He goes by Cy, but here in the States we call him Simon. Simon Clancy, how you doing, sir?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
We're doing good. Definitely, gracious to have you on the pod. We definitely appreciate your time. And before we get into the show, Matt, can you please let the people know who is our presenting sponsor?
Yes, sir. This episode and every other episode is brought to you by Buffalo Wing Kings. Here at the Overdue Bills podcast, there's two things the guys over here know. That's Bills football, and that's wings. Our first choice and the best choice is Buffalo Wing Kings. At Wing Kings is Wings 101. With over 101 different flavors in their beloved Wing of the Month special, Wing Kings is sure to school any other place around. Opening a new location in the University District on Main Street, coming soon. Be on the lookout for that. They're available for Bills games, parties, or just any other time you have a craving for wings. Hit those guys up. Stop down and see them at their Elmwood Village location at 484 Elmwood Avenue, or give them a call at 716-248-1427 and find out why they say, and we know, they got the best wings in town, hands down. And make sure when you go in there, you mention our name, Overdue Bills Podcast, and get 10% off your order.
Absolutely. Shout out to Buffalo Wing Kings. Definitely excited, for them. But listen, let's get into the show. Before we do that, housekeeping, a little bit of housekeeping. We understand overduebillspod.com. Overduebillspod.com. That's basically the hub, of the show. You can get your merch there, look at past shows, just everything, all of our content, all of our articles, everything is on that platform. So please go look at that, overduebillspod.com. We ask you to like, share, rate, and review, subscribe. Please do all of those amazing things. All right, and you know how it is. Quick question of the day. And I got to ask Mr. Simon this. There's a lot of things going on in the media, and we asked it on our show, previously about Deshaun Watson. And, I guess I want to get a little bit of a different perspective. We look at it differently. We actually don't want him to come into our division. But for those Miami Dolphins fans, how do you feel about all of the talk around it?
Oh, God. I mean, how long have you got? It's such a difficult, complex situation. I think Dolphin fans are, I would probably say 85-15 split in not wanting him because of what's happening in terms of, because of what's happening with the off-the-field stuff, because of the sexual allegations, because I think people, I've spoken to Dolphin fans who said, I will give up supporting the team if we bring this guy in. And I think there's it's such a bad PR look for Miami, and we'll get into Tua and the way that he is being treated sort of vicariously through this Watson situation. But also, this is the Miami Dolphins team that has forever prided itself on an ownership group that is headed up by Stephen Ross, but includes Serena and Venus Williams, that includes Gloria Estefan, that includes Fergie from the Black Eyed Peas. It has two women scouts as part of the scouting department. This is an organization that for many years, Dawn Aponte was a head of finance, now very high up in NFL senior management. And you just think, what sort of message is this sending to to the fans of the Dolphins who are women? What is it sending? What message is it sending to those women within the organization that, you know what, we value winning over all this terrible stuff that's happening, all these things that he's accused of doing. And I totally understand that you're innocent until proven guilty. But there are the fact of the matter is there are 22 different cases out there against Deshaun Watson. So I think it's a very, just away from football, it's a very difficult, very uncomfortable, and ultimately a very badly handled situation by the Dolphins, who have had ample opportunity to say they're not interested in Deshaun Watson and have summarily failed to do so almost every step of the way. And what that's done is have a knock-on effect that it's made, you know, it's put Tua in a very uncomfortable situation. You know, it's like I've had 13 games to try and prove myself. I am getting significantly better week in, week out. And there's a really weird narrative around Tua in terms of he sucks, he's this, he's that. And I think it speaks to the sort of what I would call the red zonification of how people view the NFL. You know, lots of people, you know, you guys will watch Buffalo games, I will watch Dolphin games, Packers fans will watch Packers games, you know, but for lots of people, if your team's game is over, you'll probably just watch red zone. And so you are only seeing a very small amount of, you know, if it's for a team like the Dolphins who are 1-6, you're out the playoff race, so you're not featuring very much on red zone anyway. So you're only ever going to see, maybe if Tua throws a pick, you're just going to see that pick. And so in your head, you're getting up this, oh, he's thrown a pick. We don't see all the other throws. We don't see the insane accuracy, you know, the touch, all the things that he's actually been doing the last 3 weeks since he's come back from injury. So yeah, the Watson thing is it's such a hot potato issue in Miami at the moment with fans. And, you know, look, if this was Deshaun Watson without all these allegations, it would still be quite an uncomfortable situation with the way they treated Tua. But it's Deshaun Watson. But yeah, it's a really difficult one.
It's definitely interesting. And we're gonna talk about Tua in just a second. But definitely on the Deshaun Watson piece, like a lot of narratives going around, even from what I'm heard, what I at least heard today, that the deal was actually on the table. Like it's actually the only thing that they're waiting for is Deshaun Watson to just settle, like in a sense. But I guess he's, you know, playing hardball, and you know that's for the courts to decide. I don't necessarily, you know, want to delve into that because we don't know what happened. It's a very unfortunate situation for all parties involved. So. But that, you know, that will, you know, play out with itself. But, you know, it's definitely interesting to see what's going on with Tua. But Matt, I know you had a question.
Oh, just I mean, kind of to backtrack before the question of the day. I'm kind of to add on to the intro. How did you get involved with the Dolphins, or you know, covering them or contributing? Right.
Sort of 37 years ago, I went to a children's birthday party to see Ghostbusters, the original Ghostbusters film when it came out. Jeez. At a friend's house. I was 10 years old, came back and they had the TV on and this thing was on, American football, these guys throwing balls down there. And I was like, never seen this sport before. This is incredible. All the kids were like eating cake and playing. And I was just literally sat there watching this. And it was just a highlights package of kind of great throws and catches. And that for me was it. Marino, it was 1984, Marino, Duper, Mark Clayton. And so from that point on, that's been the kind of the NFL love affair of, and that's how it started. And unfortunately, you know, it's been a pretty torrid time in terms of playoff appearances and terrible draft picks and bad quarterbacks and that sort of thing. But, you know what it's like. You buy into this thing and it's a train you can't get off. And, you know, it feels like we're a long way away from it. You know, it felt like 18 months ago that, you know, this could be something special, but it's been so badly handled. The draft picks, the free agent money have been really wasted. And I suppose what's worse now is that we're sat here holding the second overall pick in the 2022 draft that we traded away to Philadelphia for the right to move back up to select Jalen Waddle, who's had, you know, Waddle's had a nice season, but you know, he's 44 catches, but he's averaging 8.7 yards a catch. The Dolphins have no idea how to use Jalen Waddle.
They really don't.
Confines of their offense. They don't. I mean, if we were to sit here a year ago and say, you know, Jamar Chase is averaging 21.5 yards a catch, Kyle Pitts is averaging 15.2 yards per catch, two players that Miami could have had if they'd stayed at the third pick. And actually, Jalen Waddle is averaging arguably the best deep threat in college football over the last 2 years is averaging 8.7. They've turned him into Jarvis Landry, essentially, which is mind-boggling. So, so that's ultimately a long story of how I got into it. So back in the 80s, Marino, Clayton, Duper, Ferrell Edmonds, you know, Sam Madison, Pat Satan, those guys, and we are.
Let me so where exactly are, for the people, where exactly are you from?
So I'm from England, born and raised in England. Live in Manchester, which is in the north west of the country. So about 150 miles from London.
Absolutely.
So we used to get games on TV over here, sort of as live. So the games, like the TV coverage would start at 9 o'clock in the evening, which would be 4 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time. And we would get a sort of a packaged highlight of the game from the early kickoff, sort of an as live kind of thing. And I grew up listening to games on Armed Forces Radio, which is, your servicemen and women who are situated around the world in, Germany and Japan and wherever. There is a network for the military. Wow. And you can find it on your radio dial. And every Saturday night I would listen to, my friends were out dating women and drinking beer, and I was sat in my bedroom listening to UCLA against USC, and on Sunday nights, so bleary-eyed, I'd get to school on Monday morning, having been awake till 4 o'clock listening to all these games. And that was my life for years. And so, and now over here in the UK, obviously, we have every single, red zone. We have 2 live games Sunday. We have 3 live games Sunday. We have Thursday night game live, the Monday night game live, TV channels dedicated to the NFL, games over here, obviously, in London every year. So you can't escape the NFL. But, I was there back in the day when, there would be times where I would not know the result of the Miami game until the following day. So on Monday, we'd get the International Herald Tribune, which would come over on the flights to Gatwick Airport and stuff, the big airports. So you'd go and pick up a copy of the paper and get to the box score and, yes, the Dolphins won. That would be the only way I'd find out.
That's
the reception
crazy.
on Armed Forces is terrible. But yeah, that's how I got into it.
That's amazing. Definitely amazing. But I did want to talk about the Tua, and I guess the narrative around it is like a Tua regression, right? Or I guess it's kind of hard to say a regression because he didn't play like a lot of games. He doesn't have, a huge sample size, but 7 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Even though he was hurt this year, people expect him to be like lights out. They look at his counterpart, California, or I guess the Los Angeles Chargers, I should say. When they look that way, when they look west, it's like, oh my God, they have this, great player that was picked after him. So what do you say about, Tua? I know you talked about his accuracy and he's getting better, but do you think it's enough in today's NFL, right? Because we dealt with it with Josh Allen, right? We saw a 3-year, I guess, plan, and it was like, oh my God, Josh Allen, 3rd year, the light just went on. Do you think that's a situation with Tua, or is the situation around him so bad that it's just not going to get better?
It's such an interesting question, and there are so many levels to the answer. I think the situation around him is bad, but I don't want to sit here and make excuses. That would be unfair on Tua. I think when Josh was at Wyoming, you saw the seeds of what could have been an amazing quarterback, but also there were the accuracy issues, the throws that just left you scratching your head. Then there were the throws that just made you go, wow, this kid has got something. And I know for you as Bills fans, but obviously me watching from afar, in that rookie season, there was a lot more bad than good. But we've seen the development and we've seen him turn into an MVP level quarterback. I wasn't actually sure that accuracy for me is one of those things that you often think you can't fix bad accuracy. If you're completing less than 60% of your passes in college, you're not all of a sudden going to become a 70% passer once you hit the NFL. So the thing for Tua was that we always knew. He gets a bad knock about his athleticism. He's actually way more athletic than people give him credit for. His ability to manipulate the pocket, his footwork is excellent. He's not got a monster arm, but his arm is capable enough. Where he wins is he wins with accuracy. The issue for Miami has been no running game whatsoever. You rely on Myles Gaskin, 7th round pick out of Washington. He's 180 pounds. Salvon Ahmed, Malcolm Brown has been a disappointment as a free agent pickup. And their receiving group, last year for much of his time, he was relying on Matt Hollins, who was a special teams captain, was a special teams ace, with the Eagles. Devontae Parker was always hurt. Preston Williams was out much of last season. Inexplicably, the Dolphins decided to sign Will Fuller, arguably the most injured wide receiver in the NFL. So they've now got a receiving room of Parker, Williams, and Fuller, who will never play in the same game together because they can never be healthy.
Right.
So on Sunday against Atlanta, most of the time, the receiving group was 3 tight ends. So Durham Smythe, Mike Gesicki, and Matt Collins, who's essentially a tight end, big-bodied receiver, and Jalen Waddle. That was the 4 receiver set, plus an offensive line that they have so badly put together. And you talk about the Chargers. Tom Telesco and the job that he's done at the Chargers will ultimately get Chris Greer, the Dolphins GM, the sack, Because as good as Tua is, Justin Herbert looks like he's on a kind of a Hall of Fame trajectory at this point, right? I mean, that's a fair analysis. So he's always going to be measured against whatever Justin Herbert does.
Right.
Tua has to match up to that. But then you look at this draft, as good as Waddle has been with his 44 catches, let's take the yards per catch out. He's been a real bright spot for the offense. But Rashawn Slater, the left tackle who Miami could have had, already looks like an all-pro. I mean, he's been phenomenal all season long. Practice, he's iron sharpens iron. In practice every week, he's against Joey Bosa. He was against, he absolutely looks the part. The Dolphins invested in Austin Jackson last year, the 18th overall pick, who's been an absolute disaster. I mean, he was okay as a rookie. His regression as a sophomore has been quite staggering to the point where they've now had to move him to left guard. And there's talk now that they may even have to bench him. It feels like he's not reclaimable at this point. So the offensive line is the worst group in the league. So whilst I'm saying I don't want to make excuses for Tua, he has a receiver group to which half of his receivers are actually tight ends. So Durham Smythe and Mike Gesicki make up half of his actual wide receivers. They're not even playing as tight ends, they're just playing as receivers. And an offensive line, as you saw in the game in Miami, where Jesse Davis whiffs on AJ Epinesa and boom, Tua's out with three broken ribs because he gets half a second and you've got a 270-pound Iowa defensive lineman cannoning into his side when he's... I mean, that's not fair on anybody.
No,
and
then
on top of all that, we're trading for Deshaun Watson. We're trading for Deshaun Watson. We're trading for Deshaun Watson. You're not good enough.
Yeah.
And actually, the narrative is wrong because there were times last year where he didn't play very well because he's a rookie with a bad supporting cast.
Yep.
You go back and look at the Arizona game where he beat Kyler Murray in Arizona on the road. He was fantastic. Rich Eisen going, this kid could be anything he wants to be. This was a special performance. You look at the games he's played this season. Week 1, he went on the road to New England, beat the Patriots, played really well, moved the ball down the field, complimentary running game, defense played well, late fumble with Damian Harris that Xavier Howard picked up. Then he has the rib injury, misses the games, comes back, plays really well in London against the Jaguars, drives the Dolphins down the field, 2 touchdowns down, gets them back in the lead. Defense gives up the field goal to tie it and then the field goal to win it. Yep. And then last week against Atlanta, they're trailing by 2 touchdowns. Defense just can't get off the field. He brings the Dolphins back in the fourth quarter, takes a 2-point lead or a 1-point lead. Defense capitulates, boom, late field goal. And all of a sudden, the narrative is, Tua's this, Tua's that. Quarterback wins is the worst statistic for a quarterback in history. It's a terrible statistic. So there's a really odd narrative, and I'm not sure what it is, whether it's an Alabama thing, and he was so lauded when he was in college, but there is a very odd narrative, and I think it's very unfair on him. And he's put what I think as Dolphins fans we like is that he comes out, he fronts up to the media. He did a press conference yesterday. He was asked about the reports, the rumors, the Watson stuff. Do you feel loved by the facility? Do you feel loved by the team? And he fronts up and I feel loved. I know I'm the guy. I know I can do this. I know I can do that. I think a lot of Miami fans, and I think probably Tua himself, come Tuesday, if the deadline comes and goes and there's no deal for Deshaun, I think then we can just focus in on, okay, let's evaluate him. Let's get to the end of the season. Let the guy play 16 games. Let's see what he looks like in a season. Because he's on the care. If you put the statistics he's put together plus the 3 more games to take him up to 16, he'd be on something like a 31-9 touchdown to interception ratio, 4,000 yards and 70-odd. He's completing 71% of his passes this season. I'm not sure what more. I think PFF had a statistic yesterday. He's the second highest rated quarterback this season if you include the only 3 games that he's played. Yes, 2 of them were against Jacksonville and Atlanta, but you can only beat what's in front of you. You can only complete passes to who's in front of you. So,
who's that?
You can go ahead. I want to, because in talking about it, it's interesting, right? Because it's not just Tua, right, that people are kind of dealing with, and we're gonna get into the game, right? We're gonna get into the game, but I did want to ask about Brian Flores, right? Because he was, I guess, you can consider him like boy wonder, right? He was the talk of the NFL, hot new coach from New England coming from Belichick's tree. I guess I think your over-under wins was around 10 or 10.5 this year, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, a definite playoff lock. And you look up and it's like 1-6. It's like, what happened? And a lot of people are saying he's on the hot seat. He needs to be fired. How do you feel about Brian Flores right now?
I like him. I'm concerned that he's going. I don't know how much you guys follow what goes on in Miami, but he has churned through an astonishing amount of assistant coaches, position coaches, which for me is a huge red flag. Chad O'Shea came in first year as the offensive coordinator from New England. He was the receivers coach. Kind of felt like next man up in New England. If Belichick moved on, if Josh McDaniels became head coach, Chad O'Shea was going to become OC in New England. After a year, he was gone. No reason given. In comes Chan Gailey. It's like, Chan Gailey? Is this like 1984? What's going on?
We know. Yeah, we know.
Yeah. So, of course you know. So in comes Chan Gailey. Chan Gailey does a year. He's out. And then there's all of a sudden this kind of, they interview the Matt Canada, who's now the Steelers offensive coordinator. They interview the Clemson offensive coordinator. And then they sort of fudge it by bringing in two offensive coordinators, and George Godsey and Eric Studsville, who's the running back coach. But then they add a third man into the mix, who's Charlie Fry, former Lions quarterback. And nobody really knows who's calling the play. Tua doesn't really know who's calling the plays, who's designing the plays. Defensively, obviously, we had Patrick Graham as Marion Hobby was the defensive line coach. He came over from Clemson, really highly respected, coached that great Clemson defensive line with Christian Wilkins and Dexter Lawrence and Cleveland Ferrell. And Graham's gone to the Giants. Marion Hobby's gone. There is a real inconsistency in the assistant coaches, but also in kind of situational football, just some bad decisions being made. In the first couple of years when the Dolphins were underdogs and kind of, especially in that first season, that kind of tanking for Tua season where nobody really thought anything was going to happen. Yeah. The Dolphins kind of lived on the edge. There would be fake punts. They'd go for it on fourth down. There'd be weird trick plays. The great touchdown pass from the punter to the kick or the kicker to the punt, all those sorts of things. Now it feels like this season they are coaching not to lose, and they are losing. And they're losing in big moments. So Flores in London, two terrible back-to-back red, challenge flag calls that left them without timeouts to stop the clock when Jacksonville were driving at the end of the game. Jacksonville moved the ball down the field, kicked the winning field goal, and we can't stop the clock because we can do nothing about it. So we couldn't get the ball back to. So he's losing in those small situational battles. There are reports, as there always are when teams, winning kills a lot of ills. We are not winning, and so there's lots of reports like he's losing the locker room, the relationships with players. Jeff Darlington reported today that he didn't think the relationship between Tua and Brian Flores is particularly strong. He said it reminded him of the relationship between John Elway and Tim Tebow. Wow. And when Elway was kind of adamant that to bring in Peyton Manning, Tebow obviously beating the Steelers in the playoffs with that overtime touchdown pass to Demaryius Thomas, and you kind of think there are lots of question marks about Brian Flores. I suspect that he will probably survive the season. I think Chris Greer, the general manager, will be done, but I wouldn't be surprised if Flores leaves. Wow. But it feels like he's deserving of another chance unless things go, the Dolphins end up 2-14 or, and the other part of that is, as I mentioned earlier, having that first round pick that they traded to Philadelphia, which could end up 1-2-3. If the 49ers win, start to pick up a winning loss against Indianapolis. I mean, I was more happy that the 49ers lost to Indianapolis than I was that the Dolphins didn't beat the Falcons in a way. But if the 49ers pick up some wins and Miami ends up 2-14, but also has the 23rd overall pick, you're just like, we're so busy shooting ourselves in the foot that we're shooting ourselves in the face at the same time. It's kind of, so I think ultimately Flores probably will survive. I think Chris Greer's position is absolutely untenable.
Okay. So let's get into the game, right? Let's get into this game. Buffalo Bills against the Miami Dolphins. It is here, at home in Buffalo, Highmark Stadium. We're definitely excited for the game coming off a bye week. And I guess we have to get into the injury report. And I'm going to Matt first, Matt, because we have, one of our keynote players on the injury list. So can you just kind of go through that? And how do you feel about that? And I'm going to go right to you, Simon, to kind of talk about Miami Dolphins, because it has been, a lot of injuries, coming up to this point, but maybe you're getting healthy. So, Matt, just let me go to you first.
Yeah, so just on our injury report is a couple questionable guys, but two big ones that kind of stand out is obviously Dawson Knox, right? Broke his hand in the Tennessee game. He will be out. The guy that was having a stellar season, top 5 tight end, played well in the Miami game earlier. And then there's another big one that popped up on the injury report yesterday was Spencer Brown, who is our starting right tackle. He's been playing a couple games. That could be a nice little wrench in the game plan going forward to Sunday, because it just happened to him yesterday, so he didn't practice, and they're saying, he's probably not going to practice today. He'd be kind of like a game time type of thing. So those are the two big glaring injury. Everybody else is kind of like a vet rest day or, we'll probably play on Sunday.
Okay. Mr. Simon, how do you feel about your injury report?
Yeah, I think I haven't looked at it today, but I think yesterday everybody was available for the walkthrough that they had for kind of light practice, which involved those three receivers that I talked about earlier on. I'll be astonished if all of them ends up playing. Obviously, Jason McCourty is out, hurt his foot in the game against Atlanta, needs season-ending surgery. The two corners have kind of been banged up. Jones and Howard haven't played particularly well this season and carrying some injuries. But, offensively, we really need those horses back at the receiver position to help out because, we have no understanding of how to beat you guys. Situationally, we have no understanding of how to beat you when we're on offense. And we just cannot work out a plan to contain Josh. We cannot work out a plan to cover, whether that's, let's say Xavier Howard is playing Stephon Diggs. We do not have an answer for the rest of your receivers. We've never had an answer for Dawson Knox. And one of the strengths of Brian Flores was defensive backs. You look at all those great DBs in New England with Devin McCourty, with Patrick Chung, with, Stephon Gilmore, Jonathan Thingy, whose name completely escapes me, but
Jackson.
JC Jackson, Jonathan Jones. That was Flores' strength.
Right.
And here we've got Xavier Howard, we've got Byron Jones, we've got Nick Needham, who plays very well in the nickel. They brought in Justin Coleman, they drafted Javon Holland out of Oregon. Obviously, McCourty's there, Eric Rowe. It was meant to be a strength for the Dolphins, and it's been a real weakness this season. We just can't cover. But it goes back to the point that I said, we just haven't been able to work out a plan, especially on third down. We haven't been able to work out a plan how to get off the field because Josh just kills us with his feet, and whether, we've tried to employ Jerome Baker as a spy. I suspect that Brandon Jones or Javon Holland will end up trying to play a spy, especially on third downs. We try and flood the field with 7 DBs on third down, and we just cannot work out a way to get off the field. And then, when we've got the ball, you guys are so good at taking the ball away, as was evidenced in that terrible performance at the back end of last season when Tua was picked off 4 times.
That was terrible.
We've perennially struggled. I mean, I think the last time we beat you was the Jay Ajayi overtime game with a long field goal at the back end of the game. Okay, when Ajayi had that long run in OT to set up the field goal. And it just feels like we never have an answer for anything that your coaching staff do. And it's just one of those, you look at how Tennessee played you guys the other night and you think, okay, the Dolphins coaches must be sitting watching this thinking, this is how we do it. But we don't have a Derrick Henry. We don't have AJ Brown and Julio Jones. We don't have the offensive line they have. We don't have, David Long at linebacker. We don't, those are the things that we've really struggled with when we've come up against you guys. And it feels like every time, not only we beat them, you can take being beaten because that happens in the NFL. What you can't take is consistently and perennially being outcoached by Brian Daboll, by Sean McDermott, by your special teams, by your DC. And it happens game after game after game against it. And it just feels like you've got our number, whatever we do. And I don't see that changing on Sunday.
Interesting. I'm gonna go to you, Matt. Even with that being said, so how do you feel about the Buffalo Bills, and as far as like scheme wise, like how do you think we're gonna attack the Miami Dolphins? Obviously, we beat them 35-0, but it wasn't. I mean, he went out early. The game was over at that point, right? I mean, it was just all bets were off. So with this game coming off a bye, we just had I want to say it wasn't necessarily an embarrassing loss, but it was a loss we didn't like against Tennessee. We were very upset about that. And, I guess this year in the NFL, coming off the bye, teams haven't been necessarily great. But how do you feel we're going to attack the Miami Dolphins? Do you think since Dawson Knox is out, are we going to spread them out and, just go 4 wide and just try to attack them that way? First quarter, get as many points up on the board, see if we can just defeat them that way. Or do you think methodically, 11 personnel, maybe we're going to run the ball a little bit, take it easy, and let's just see if we can just beat them?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I don't think much is going to change in the attack. I mean, because we did run the ball pretty well. I know Devin Singletary broke that long one first run of the game, which in turn opened up the pass game. And like Cy was saying, once you go past Xavier Howard, who really hasn't been a great coverage corner this year. I mean, Kyle Pitts gave him everything he could handle last week, and it just hasn't been looking good. And man, So Stephon Diggs, I know he posted this week, I'm back, I'm recharged, I'm ready to roll. And then they're coming off of a loss. So I think they're going to come out and just spread it out and start rolling and, kind of keep that offensive train rolling. And then the other thing is Sean McDermott coming out of a bye in his career. He's undefeated, 4-0 so far. He has that extra week to prepare. And I know he talked about maybe about being out coached. It's just an unfortunate situation where, he kind of has that extra week to kind of look into the attack and look into how to stop whatever they do. And then defensively, just the same deal. We're going to put some pressure on them. He said, like Sai said, they can't really run the ball. So it opens up a lot more pressure situations. And then also they don't know how to use guys like Jalen Waddle. Like it seems like all of his catches are like screen passes or, like 5-yard outs, because I have him in fantasy and he'll get like 7-8 catches but it'll be for like 65 yards. And so you know exactly how the turn of the tape goes with that. So I don't think much will change with the strategy of attack. I just think they're gonna execute a lot better than they did in Tennessee, like in the red zone, which Miami's I think is the 31st worst red zone defense. Jeez. So that maybe our offensive red zone woes can be cured this game. That is the only point of attack where I think that they will be able to show some improvement. I don't think in the grand scheme of things, Miami will be able to slow them down.
I think the interesting thing for us is that especially when we're on offense, when we've got the ball, that RPO game has been working well, but we need to establish a running game to help support that. If we can pick up some early yards on the ground, that then sets up that RPO game because then you're fearing whether or not Tua's going to keep the ball or actually hand off and they're going to pick up yards. The worry for us, I think, is that, with your athletic linebackers, with your Matt Milanos and Tremaine Edmonds, but also, arguably two of the most unheralded players in the NFL in Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde playing safety, athletic, just great football IQs. They are absolutely prime, especially when you can man up on the outside with Trey White and such a good player. And again, another underrated player. But those safeties, running the alley, if the Dolphins are looking to throw quickly, those quick screens, those kind of bubble screens and flanker screens, and that RPO slant game that works really well. It's interesting because you can see a Poyer or a Micah Hyde stepping up and making a play. But I wonder whether the Dolphins have it in them where you're almost like, if those guys are looking for that, this may be the week where you see a couple of deep shots where you get a Jalen Waddle in behind, and maybe they try and stretch the field that way. But they're gonna have to try and establish the run, because if they can't do it, I think that the offense just falls apart, and it's difficult to do it with guys who are essentially third down backs.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, even that, and then like with the defensive line, like you said, the offensive line is probably one of the worst units in the NFL. We saw that in the last matchup. I think if Tua would have stayed in the game, there probably would have been a double-digit sack day. That was just the kind of day it was looking like. So that's another thing.
He was sacked 3 times, knocked down 3 times, 6 of the first 10. He went out the 10th play. He was knocked down, 6 times in 10.
And Brissett escaped. Yeah.
Jacoby was running for his life.
For his life. Yep.
He had no chance. It's interesting to me because I honestly, for Miami, I think it's a kitchen sink game. Like I don't understand what Flores is like holding back at this point. Even like the RPO stuff. Well, and how I look at it, granted, I am not smarter than any offensive coordinator in the league, but just to see the weapons you have, like even though they may, be injury riddled, but Devontae Parker he's a good receiver. Will Fuller he takes the top off the defense, right? Jalen Waddle is a top 5 receiver, or at least talent wise. And Mike Gesicki, like he's a great tight end, and even Myles Gaskin.
Gesicki's one of the best pure catching tight ends in the league.
Absolutely.
But what's really fascinating about Gesicki is you look at the stats in terms of, and I'm not a big stats guy, but you look at the terms of the snap stats. Mike Gesicki, you put him in a category of receiver with Darren Waller and a George Kittle and a Travis Kelce and those guys, upper echelon. He's a top 5-7 tight end, and as a pass catcher tight end, he catches everything. Everything. Look at his snap count. Last week against Atlanta, I think we had 67 offensive plays. He played 40 snaps, and you're like, why is Durham Smythe, who's a number 2 tight end, why is he playing like 64 snaps? And arguably the best hands catching tight end in the league, is only playing 40. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. It makes no sense. And those are some of the, like I talked about, those sort of weird situational football decisions or coaching decisions that come down from a George Godsey or whoever's calling the plays. I mean, I'm waiting for my phone to ring to see if I can get a go at calling the plays this week, because everybody else seems to be calling plays. So, it's just a weird kind of melange of odd decisions and things that don't really add up to try. Like you made the point. Why are we not throwing the kitchen? We're 1-6. We've got nothing to lose. When we're in plus territory, why are we punting? If it's 4th and 3 at your 43-yard line, why are we punting for field position? It makes no odds. We're either 1-7 or 2-6. I mean, it makes no difference, right?
You're right. It's frustrating. I picked up to it you're right, because most NFL is regional. I mean, it's obviously international, but as far as like the teams, you kind of focus on your team, and then it's like a red zone thing, like you said, but also fantasy as well. Like, so you keep your eye on the players you have. I picked up Tua. Okay, Tua can do something, but it's just like, even like, you keep an eye on it. And I'm watching the game, even like tracking it on ESPN, and it's like 4th and 3. Like, come on, please just let him do it. Like, what is the point? And like, I guess as a fantasy manager, it's frustrating. So I know I can imagine how a Miami fan can feel. But we do have a segment on our show, expectation versus reality, and I do want to talk about the 13.5 points that we're laying in Buffalo, right? That the odds makers saying that pretty much is going to be a blowout. But before we get into that, Matt, can you please let the people know who is sponsoring this segment?
Yes, sir. This segment is brought to you by the good people at Buffalo Pet Supply. Do you have a pet? Are you looking into getting a pet? Or do you know someone who has a pet? And there's only one place to send them to have that pet live its best life: Buffalo Pet Supply. Specializing in fish, small animals, and reptiles, the knowledgeable staff at Buffalo Pet Supply can get you set up or maintain whatever setup you have for that pet. Stop down and see the family-owned and operated staff over at 1345 Military Road in Kenmore, or give them a call at 716-874-1951.
Absolutely. Shout out to Buffalo Pet Supply, where your expectation is their reality. And like I said, so the spread is 13.5, and it's interesting to me because, right, last year we effectively ended the Miami Dolphins season, right? Like in an embarrassing fashion. It was, like it was supposed to be the win. They were supposed to win the game, go out. We didn't necessarily need it, but didn't turn out that way. Come this year, the beginning of the season, I know Tua went out, but we blew him out by 35 zip. I mean, it's a divisional opponent. It's supposed to be a hard game. So, and looking at this 13.5, I know that's the expectation of the odds makers, but Sai, how do you feel about that? Do you think, are we looking at like a blowout situation? Does the Miami Dolphins have anything left in the tank? Do they have any life?
I mean, so we do a Dolphins podcast, and we did our preview show yesterday, and I said it would be 45-17 to Buffalo, Jesus. and I'd be amazed if it was that much closer. Just because, speaking of what we talked about, bad offensive line, no running game, injured receivers, a defensive line that can't stop the run, injured linebackers, Jerome Baker, Baker and Landon Roberts aren't playing well. Landon Roberts can't cover, and a secondary that has played down to expectations. And even Jason Sanders, who's one of the top 2 or 3 kickers in the league, was the All-Pro kicker last year, has missed 3 kicks this season. We've got Michael Pilardi. We inexplicably got rid of Matt Hawk, brought in Michael Pilardi, who's been really average. So that then you pile on that coaching decisions, and I can't see anything other than a big Buffalo win, because we just don't understand how to play you, and I just don't think we have the horses to be able to slow you down.
Matt, what is your prediction on the score?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the same way. I mean, this is not only not only have we been able to be successful against them, it's kind of a game where I feel Josh is comfortable, and this is like the team that he like licks his chops. Like, all right, we got Miami this week. He should be undefeated in his career if not for a Charles Clay wide open drop. That was painful. But he's 6-1 in his career against them. 22 touchdowns, 5 picks. I don't have the yardage on hand, but it's definitely one of the games where he loves to play these guys. McDermott going to have him prepared out of a bye. These guys, they want the 1 seed, so they got to keep the train rolling. They got to make a statement coming out. So I don't see anything different.
Yeah, I think it's
than us covering. Yeah,
you're okay. You didn't give me a score. What was your score, Matt?
Well, the score, I'm going to go, I love staying in my 30 range. I'm going to go 38-10.
Jesus, 38-10. I think it's actually going to be interesting to say the least. I think in the first quarter, and I'm not telling anybody to play the first quarter, but if you were going to play the first quarter, I think you might want to look at Miami. I do believe that the Bills is going to win by a substantial margin, 20 plus points. But I think like the first quarter, Miami should come out. I would suppose they would come out at least a little bit hard, right? I mean, it's gonna tell a tale because the whole Tua situation and how he said he doesn't feel wanted, right? Like on some level, his teammates have to look around at themselves and say, all right, are we gonna play for this guy or not? Never mind Flores, never mind the GM, never mind anybody else, but the person sitting next to you, right? They're coming at our quarterback. He's the franchise guy, regardless if he's getting traded for Deshaun Watson or not. That's who we're looking at right now. I think at some level, somebody's gonna look at somebody and say, okay, we have to at least try to play hard for him at some point. Try to do something. Do you think that that's the case, or do you think it's just like it is what it is?
Well, I think so. I think they're playing for him. I think the guys, they respect him, they like him, they all support him. Whether that's the reality behind the scenes, he's a likable kid. He's a really likable kid. Everybody seems to hang out with him. Everybody wants a part of him on the sideline. Everybody's, yucking up with him. And it's not like he's ostracized. He's sat on his own. He's there. He's part of the group. He's a leader. He's taken on that leadership role. I think what you'll see on Sunday is the Dolphins come out, as they have done with Tua against New England. They did it against Jacksonville, did it against Atlanta. They moved the ball well on the opening drive. The first drive of the first game against New England, they moved the ball down the field. I was like, wow, if this is one season, Super Bowl, it's like, this was a great drive, They moved the ball well. If the game is close, Tua is the highest rated fourth quarter quarterback in the NFL this season. If the game is close, he needs to put the team on his back and carry them over the line at some point. But he also needs the opportunity to be able to do that, i.e., he needs a head coach who hasn't burned his timeouts on inexplicable challenge calls and a defense that hasn't just folded at the most critical time. But you've got to, as much as I said quarterback wins aren't a thing, what he needs to do is prove that he can carry this team in a big moment. So what you want him to do is get the ball on the road down by 6 against the Bills with 1:50 to go and a timeout. Now let's see where you are. Now let's see, are you really the kid that a lot of people think you might be?
Right.
Actually, a lot of people in Miami think you might be. There is the bigger national narrative that he's not that guy. But I think there is a growing amount of people. You look at the last couple of games and you think, this kid, there is something here. There is something worth keeping. There is something worth building on. But I think that's, he's got to be able to do that. He's got to be able to do what Josh does and do what Aaron Rodgers does and do what Kyler Murray does and put the team on his back, drive down the field and win a big game. And at that point, the uncomfortable thing, I think, as a Miami fan and as a Tua fan is that this is the last game you wanted to play before the trade deadline when they've got the big red emergency Deshaun Watson button sitting there.
Right.
Because, no matter how he plays, if the Dolphins get blown out 38-10, as Matt said, if they lose 45-17, you know what's going to happen. The Monday talk shows, the talking heads, the Colin Cowherds. It's going to be Tua sucks. There's a day before the trade deadline. Steve Ross's ears are like, oh God, what do I do? What do I do? Do I press the red button? I'm like Bart Simpson, press the button. Press it. And maybe they do that. And I think that would be a damning indictment on the team and a real shame for a kid who's beginning to look like he might have something that you can really work with if you surround him with, give him some talent, give him a Stephon Diggs, give him a David Bakhtiari, give him a Devontae Adams. Let's have a Jonathan Taylor, because we've summarily failed to do that, and we've had the opportunity to do that, and we haven't done it. We've misdrafted, whether that's Noah Igbenogany or Austin Jackson. We could have drafted Jonathan Taylor. We could have drafted Rashawn Slater. The team could be looking very much more. You look at all the free agency money that was wasted last year with Carl Van Noy and Shaq Lawson, and those guys aren't even on the team anymore. It's like,
No, you're right.
So,
You're absolutely right. And if he does get traded, I know it's kind of early, but I think Tua, he's lining up to have a Drew Brees like career, even though he's
New Orleans is a great landing spot for him. It really is. He's a Sean Payton kind of quarterback.
Yeah.
You can see 10 years time, people going, wow, as they were with Drew Brees with the Chargers.
Right.
We were wrong about Drew Brees and we were wrong about this kid because he's the sort of guy that Sean Payton in the dome could turn into something really special because he fits exactly. He's Drew Brees. He is, Dan Orlovsky said it when he was drafted. he is Drew Brees for the modern era, and that's what he is. But the Dolphins don't work. They work to him a little bit. They play to his strengths a little bit, and then all of a sudden it's like, where is this play calling come from? What are we doing? What's happening here? So we shall see.
Absolutely. We can't wait for the game. Definitely excited for the game. This coming Sunday. Definitely will be in attendance. First game of the season. Had a lot of things going on Sundays, but I'm definitely excited. Hopefully, I can see Matt, my guy. We definitely appreciate you. We really appreciate you, Slime and Clancy. I last year for our Rams game, I alluded to it earlier, but we had someone from England last year. It was I can't think of the guy's name. Man, I'm so sorry.
I'm not the first Brit. I'm so disappointed.
I know you're not. I know it was.
Well, actually, no, wasn't he? I don't know if he was from England though. I think he was. So you might be the first one from England.
Okay.
Yep. I think he was. Yeah, I'm pretty. I'm not. I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure. I have to look back at it.
We do have to look at it, but I'm almost 100% sure that he was. But anyway,
he was like a Rams. He was a Rams UK backer. He ran that sector, but I don't think he was from England. I'm not 100%.
It sounds like he wasn't legit English, so this is, I have got 1% battery on my laptop. If you want to carry on, I can just run and get my charger, or if you're about to finish, just in case I suddenly disappear, that might be why.
Oh, we're finishing. We can end it. We can end it right now. Definitely thank you. Please overduebillspod.com. Overduebillspod.com. Please get your merch. We definitely have our Salute to Service merch coming up, so please get that. And our breast cancer awareness, we have that. We want you to get that right now so we can give a substantial check to Roswell for breast cancer awareness. So shout out to all the survivors. And we thank you for coming on the show. And as it is every show, we end every show with a little bit of hey, 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 hey.
Hey.